You ever sit at a dinner table and feel like you're haunting it? Not dead, just unseen. That's how it always was with them, with her. Rachel, my older sister, they're everything. The golden spark in every conversation. Me? I was the empty chair even when I was sitting in it. I used to think it was me. Maybe I was too quiet, too forgettable. Maybe if I cleaned more, scored higher, spoke less, existed better, maybe then I'd matter. I built my life on maybes. At 17, I stopped asking for affection and started handing them results. Report cards, clean laundry, mopped floors. They didn't ask me to, but they sure didn't stop me either. Meanwhile, Rachel, she could set the curtains on fire and they'd call it a phase. I remember one night coming home from my shift at the corner store. My hands smelled like lemons and dust. I walked in and saw my sister on the couch, a half-eaten plate of food balancing on one knee, controller in hand. She didn't look up when I noticed my backpack, my stuff, dumped across the living room floor like trash. My notebooks were torn open, pages ripped, notes gone. She didn't even flinch when I asked. Needed some paper, she mumbled, eyes locked on the screen. Just like that. Hours of work reduced to nothing because Rachel needed something. And in this house, what Rachel needed, Rachel got. I stared at the shredded pages in my hand like they could explain something I didn't already know. They're just notes, she added, almost bored. It's not like you do anything that matters. That's when the quiet broke. Not loudly, not like rage, just this click inside me, like a door finally locking shut. When our parents walked in, I tried one last time, told them what she did, held up the ruined pages like proof. My mum? She waved it off like a fly. My dad? He asked why I was always so dramatic. Rachel? She smirked like she knew this game by heart, and she'd already won. Then Dad said it, voice like gravel and vinegar. This attitude is exactly why no one wants you around. I remember the silence after that more than the sentence itself. I remember how Rachel leaned back like it was entertainment. I remember how my mum nodded. Actually nodded. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and I left. I didn't slam the door when I left. There was no cinematic exit, no dramatic soundtrack, just the soft click of it shutting behind me, and the sound of my breath fogging in the cold. I didn't even have a plan, just a duffel bag, $53, and the kind of emptiness you only feel when you realize you were never really wanted, just tolerated. Lucas didn't ask questions when I showed up at his apartment. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and said, "Couch is yours. I'll grab you a blanket." That one sentence, 5 words, felt like more home than my parents ever managed. The first night away was quiet. No Rachel shouting from her room, no parents whispering about me like I couldn't hear. Just the hum of Lucas's old fridge and the occasional passing car. And for the first time in years, I slept. The next morning, though, 12 missed calls. From people who told me, clearly, I wasn't wanted. Now they wanted something. At first, I ignored them. Let the phone buzz into silence. Let it ache on the counter like it might shatter if I picked it up. Dad, Mum, Rachel. Again and again. I knew that sound, desperation. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them. Sure enough, the texts followed. You're being childish. Come home. Enough with the drama. Right. Now it was drama. Not when Rachel tore up my work. Not when Dad told me I was an inconvenience. No, then it was just Tuesday. I was just finishing the last bite of Lucas's leftover pad when it came through. From Mum. Come home. We have a problem. Just 5 words. And just like that, I knew they didn't want me back. They needed me. And that changed everything. I leaned back on the couch, stared at the glowing screen in my hand, and smiled. A slow, cold smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. Interesting, I muttered. Let them sweat. I didn't answer right away. Letting them sit in silence felt therapeutic. For years, I had been the silent one, invisible background noise in my own house. Now it was their turn to be unheard. Still, curiosity's a stubborn thing. When my mum texted, "Come home." "We have a problem," I finally gave in and replied. 2 words. "What happened?" Her reply came fast, like she'd been staring at the screen. "Rachel screwed up. Bad." I didn't flinch, didn't gasp. I just stared at the name. The name they praised while ignoring mine. The daughter they invested in, emotionally, financially, socially, while I scrubbed dishes and handed over report cards no one read. My fingers hovered above the screen. Not my problem. And I hit send. I expected silence. But the next text came less than a minute later from my dad. "We don't have time for this. Come home." And then another from Mum. "Please, it's serious, serious." Where was that urgency when Rachel laughed while tearing up my notes? Where was please when I packed my bags and walked out the front door? Now suddenly they remembered how to beg. I didn't respond. Instead, I let the storm build. It didn't take long. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a vague problem. It was an emergency. "Your sister's been arrested." That got my attention. I grabbed Lucas's car keys from the hook. He looked up from his laptop. "You sure?" he asked, voice low, cautious. "I'm not going to help," I said, sliding into my jacket. "I just want to see it." With my own eyes. The drive back to the neighborhood was short, but the air in my lungs felt heavy. Familiar streets looked different somehow, like they'd shrunk since I'd left. The Carter house loomed at the end of the cul-de-sac, as picture perfect as ever. White shutters, manicured lawn, a shell pretending to be a home. But this time, something was off. My dad was pacing the front porch like a man unraveling, phone in hand, muttering to no one. My mum was sitting on the steps, her head in her hands. No laughter, no dismissive glances, no passive-aggressive questions about my tone, just panic. I walked up slowly, arms folded, feeling the cold bite my fingers, and liking it. "So," I said, voice calm, "who wants to tell me what happened?" Dad spun around. "Where the hell have you been?" I raised an eyebrow. "Not here, like you asked." His jaw clenched, but before he could launch into one of his lectures, Mom lifted her head. "It's Rachel," she said, voice trembling. "She stole something." "From the wrong people," I frowned. "Wrong people," Dad sighed. "Some guys at that arcade she hangs around. She took something from them. Something serious." They called the cops. "She's in holding." There it was. Rachel, the girl who never heard no, who never faced a consequence harsher than a gentle scolding. She had finally stepped outside the protected dome they'd built around her, and the real world hit back. I crossed my arms. "And you need me, because..." Mom looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "We need money. For bail. For a lawyer. Anything." I almost laughed. "Almost," Dad added. "Bail's set at $10,000. We can cover some, but we need you to pay the rest. 10 grand. The same amount I once asked for to help pay for community college. They told me then to work harder. So I did. And still, it was never enough. Now they wanted a handout. From me. I took a slow breath, feigning thought. "That's a lot of money." Mum perked up slightly. "So you'll help?" I smiled. "Oh, absolutely not." The look on their faces, That sudden drop from hope to horror was beautiful, tragic, in a poetic kind of way. "Excuse me?" Dad snapped. "Not my problem," I said, echoing my own text from earlier. Mum's voice cracked. "She's your sister." "No," I replied. "She's your daughter, and you made it perfectly clear that I wasn't really part of this family." Dad stepped forward. "You think this is funny?" I met his glare head on. "No, I think it's fair. Mum reached out. We'll pay you back." Please, I took a step back. "You think I trust you?" Her mouth opened, then closed. No words. I shook my head. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll figure this out on your own, like you always wanted. And I'll walk away, like you told me to." And I did. As I turned, Dad shouted behind me, "Don't you dare walk away from us." I glanced back over my shoulder. "You already did it first." Then I got in the car, shut the door, and drove away, leaving them behind. For good this time. The silence didn't last long. By the time I was halfway through my leftover takeout and halfway into a documentary I didn't care about, the texts were back. "Buzz, buzz, buzz. Please, Emily, we can work something out. Your sister is still in holding." Now they used her full name, no more casual ratch. That told me everything. The image had cracked. I leaned back on Lucas's couch, still holding the burger I'd barely touched. The grease was seeping through the wrapper, but I didn't care. I was savouring something better, the peace of being needed by people who once found me disposable. A new message popped up. "Dad, this time we'll repay you. Just trust us." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Trust them? The same people who once told me to stop acting like a victim because Rachel threw my laptop on the floor and laughed about it. Another text, and this one was gold, from Rachel. "You're seriously going to let me rot in here?" Oh, this was delicious. I took my time responding. "You told me no one wanted me around. I'm just respecting your wishes." Delivered. Read. No reply. I tossed my phone onto the armrest and took a bite of my burger. Grease and spite, not a bad pairing. But they weren't done. The next morning, I woke up to chaos in the group chat, a place I had long since muted, buried, and emotionally deleted. "We had to sell the TV. Your mother is furious with me. We're falling apart here." And then the best one yet, from Rachel herself, "I swear to God, when I get out, you better hope I don't find you." Ah, there it is, the threat. From someone in a cell, asking me for help and threatening me in the same breath. "Classic," I replied. "That's strong language for someone begging. Try again." And waited. Mom cracked first. "We're really struggling. Please." I sipped my coffee, swiped through the news, pretended I didn't see it. 2 hours later, another ping. "Emily, please. We need your help. We were wrong." There it was. I let them sit in it for a while, let the desperation bloom. Then I gave them hope, just a whisper of it. "I'll help, on one condition." The reply was instant. "Anything." I smiled, slow and cruel. "I want a public apology in the family group chat. All of you. Name the things you did. Acknowledge the way you treated me. Thank me for even considering helping." I could feel the resistance through the screen, the collective gulp, the agony of swallowing pride, the very pride they used as a sword against me. Nothing for 30 minutes. Then an hour. Then finally the ping I was waiting for. "We need to talk about how we've treated Emily, we've made mistakes and hurt her deeply. She has always been part of this family, and we are grateful she is willing to support us now." It was stiff, cold, embarrassing, perfect. I gave them a thumbs up emoji. And then I didn't answer any more calls, because I never intended to help. I just wanted the apology I should have gotten years ago, and I wanted it served with a side of shame. Rachel stayed in jail. They sold more things, begged more. Their texts went from angry to pitiful to eerily quiet. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I wasn't being cruel. I was being just. They had built a system where Rachel got everything, and now she could have the consequences too. This wasn't revenge. Not really. This was accounting. A cold, clear audit of everything they'd taken from me. Dignity, time, affection, trust. Now, they could feel the weight of that debt. And I felt lighter than I had in years. Somewhere between their 6th apology and my 4th ignored call, the silence became comfortable. Not empty, just earned. The desperation in the group chat started to wither. They stopped pretending it was about love. The pretense cracked, and underneath it was what I'd always known. I was never family. I was a fallback plan, a safety net they never thought they'd need. Until Rachel slipped, and now they needed me more than ever. I got the call a week later, blocked number. I should have ignored it. But curiosity, again, is a stubborn little beast. It was Rachel. Her voice was scratchy, full of static and ego, and beneath all that, panic. "Can't believe you did this to me," she said. "No hello, no apology, just blame, like always." I leaned back in the kitchen chair, my coffee going cold. "You told me no one wanted me. I'm just following your advice," she scoffed. "You think this makes you powerful? You're being petty, that word." Petty, it echoed in my head. Petty is tearing up someone's notes and laughing. Petty is watching them cry and calling it overreaction. This was math. A consequence finally given weight. "No," I told her, voice calm. "I think it makes me honest." She got quiet. But I knew that quiet. I'd lived under it, the kind that builds just before the storm. When I get out, I cut her off. If. The silence that followed, it was the first real power I'd ever tasted. "I wanted to help you once," I admitted. "Back when I thought there was still something human in the way you looked at me." "You're just like them," she snapped. "Wrong," I said. "They use people and pretend it's love." I just walked away. I ended the call, no slamming, just that cold little beep. And that was that. Days passed, then weeks. No more calls. Just the occasional message. "We miss you. Your sister's case is getting worse. Please, we'll make it right." It was always vague, always later, always a promise attached to guilt. But I didn't need guilt anymore. I had clarity. The last message came on a Thursday morning. "She might get time. Real time. We don't know what to do." I read it, then deleted it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because I had already made peace with one fact: they were never going to change. Not really. The only difference now was that for once, they were the ones losing sleep. Rachel stayed locked up. The charges stuck. It wasn't minor, and even their expensive lawyer, which I didn't pay for, couldn't twist it enough to make her look innocent. She got 6 months, not years, but enough. Enough to learn what it's like to feel powerless. Enough to finally understand what it's like to ask for help and get only silence in return. And me? I moved out of Lucas's place a month later. Got my own little apartment with uneven floors and terrible lighting, but it was mine. It was quiet, peaceful, no yelling from another room, no laughter that didn't include me. Just the gentle hum of the fridge and the soft clink of coffee mugs in the morning. Some nights I'd get a message. From Dad. From Mum. Even once. From an unknown number I assumed was Rachel. "We still love you. We want to fix things. Family forgives." But they weren't looking for forgiveness. They were looking for erasure. They wanted me to forget what they said, what they did, who they were when I needed them most. And that wasn't something I could give. Forgiveness is built, earned, brick by brick. not begged for when the foundation's already crumbled. I didn't hate them. That surprised me. I just didn't need them anymore. That realization, it was better than revenge. It was freedom. And so I lived. I bought candles that smelled like vanilla and cedar. I made playlists for rainy days. I left my phone on Do Not Disturb more often than not. And every time I passed a family laughing in the park or saw siblings goofing off in a coffee shop, I didn't feel bitter anymore. I felt grateful. Because now I understood the difference between family by blood and family by choice. Lucas came by every Sunday with a bag of groceries and a new story. We never talked about the past. He never asked for details. He just showed up every time, like clockwork. No apologies needed, no group chats, no performance, just real solid care. And maybe, just maybe, that was what love actually looked like. Not words, but presence. Story 2, I hadn't planned on going. High school reunions always felt like weird nostalgia parties for people trying to outdo each other. But Jamie, our old class president, kept texting, guilt-tripping me with "It's been 10 years, and we all want to see you again." I finally gave in. I cancelled a work meeting, carved out an hour, and drove straight to the hotel. Big mistake. The valet barely blinked at my car, a silver Spectra 9. Sleek, domestic, nothing flashy. But as soon as I stepped out, the vibe hit me like a brick wall. The parking lot looked like a dealership for midlife crises. Beamers, Mercs, a matte black Rolls-Royce parked right at the entrance like it owned the damn place. I didn't even make it inside before someone clocked me. Oh my God. Eric? A woman in a bodycon dress, her voice dripping with fake curiosity. I squinted at her. Nothing. "You don't remember me?" she said, lips curling like she smelled something foul. "It's Claire. You were the brainiac on the student committee, remember? What happened? Couldn't keep up after graduation." She looked me up and down like I was a questionable menu item. "Still driving a local car, huh?" I smiled politely. Didn't rise to it, but I already wanted to leave. Inside, the vibe was worse. The tables were packed. Everyone was holding court about their kids in private school, beach homes, startups. No one cared about catching up. It was a brag fest with a side of passive aggression. Only Jamie made room for me. He handed me a glass of wine and said, "You still look sharp, man. Even if your car isn't a Rolls, I bet you're doing fine." I smirked. "That's no ordinary domestic car. It's the Phantom 9, limited release." He laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. I stayed quiet most of the night, sipping my drink and nodding when necessary. But eventually, I stood up to leave. I had better things to do, like, say, leading a regional government team through infrastructure reform. But no, Claire piped up again, or already heading out. "Come on, don't be so sensitive. We're just joking." She leaned in, faux sympathy all over her face. "I mean, no one really talked to you, but that's not a reason to storm off." I bit back a sigh. "I only came for Jamie," I said, calm but firm. "Don't bother inviting me again." That's when he stood up, Raphael. Tall, cocky, and wearing a designer suit like it owed him something. Rolls-Royce guy. "Claire's fiancé, apparently," he raised his glass. "What's that supposed to mean, Eric? You think you're too good for us?" That got everyone's attention. Suddenly, the room was dialed in. "You were the big brain back in the day, sure, but what's that worth now? You're just a pencil pusher, aren't you?" I gave him a look. Civil service isn't exactly just anything. But Raphael wasn't letting it go. "Maybe you're mad because you're not the center of attention anymore. You peaked in high school, my guy." I ignored the bait and reached for my coat. Raphael laughed. "Don't bother pretending you can afford to cover dinner. This isn't a meal you pay for with your government salary." And then Claire, bless her perfume-clouded soul, walked right up and said, "You still chasing me, Eric? Remember how obsessed you were back in the day?" I blinked. "Sorry, remind me who you are?" That stung, she scoffed. 3 years, Eric. You followed me around like a puppy in high school. Something clicked. Wait, Claire Anderson? The girl who used to make charts for her crushes. Her face lit up like she'd won something. You do remember. Barely. She leaned in, dropped her voice. Don't get any funny ideas. I'm engaged to Raphael now. But hey, maybe you could drive for him. 11 grand a month. That'd be a step up, right? That broke the dam. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I slid on my coat and said, "If you're done, I'll be on my way." But Raphael wasn't. He slammed the table. 2 huge guys in black suits stepped in like we were in a mob movie. "Did I say you could leave?" he asked. The name tags on their lapels read Fitzroy Group. Of course. Langston City's richest legacy family, I sighed. My legs still work, Raphael. The first don't need your permission. He barked a laugh. This whole place, it's ours. You don't step out without my say-so. Jamie stepped in, panicked. Guys, come on, this isn't necessary. I appreciated the effort, but time was tight. I really do have a meeting, I said. There are people waiting for me. Raphael scoffed. You expect us to believe that? You're a desk clerk. You clock out at 5. I looked at him, tired. You want me to apologize for not being a walking cliché of corruption and daddy's money? Jamie whispered. Just apologize. You don't know what Fitzroy's capable of. He was trying to protect me, but it was laughable. I leaned in. Raphael, if this is about Claire, let me be very clear. I don't want her. I didn't want her back then, and I definitely don't now. Focus on your own life. But I knew he wouldn't. Are you saying she's beneath you? He growled. No, I said. Just that we're not the same kind of people. That hit a nerve. Claire stepped forward, voice sharp. So what, you think you're better than me? I didn't answer. No point explaining dignity to people who mistook shame for power. I took 2 steps before one of the bodyguards grabbed me. Raphael sauntered over. You think someone like you can just walk away? You used to be the guy who snitched on us in school. Who's going to help you now? I stared at him. This is your last warning, I said. You keep this up and you're going to regret it, he sneered. You going to call your little government office? We own this city, Eric. Your badge means nothing here. I smiled slowly. You sure about that? The room went still. Even his bodyguards paused. Because if you lay another hand on me, I said softly, I'll make sure your entire empire starts bleeding cash within the week. Tax audits, shell company exposure, insider reports, you name it. Raphael's face froze. I leaned closer. And trust me, I won't even have to make a single call. The dominoes are already set, and just like that, they let go of me. I didn't slam the door on my way out. I didn't look back, just walked through the lobby like nothing had happened because, for me, nothing had. But that moment, that was the end of the old chapter. By the time I reached my car, my phone was buzzing. Jamie again. Eric, man, are you okay? Please tell me you didn't mean what you said to Raphael. The first didn't reply. Not because I was mad at Jamie, but because I didn't want to waste my breath explaining myself again. He meant well, always tried to play both sides. But some lines don't get walked back. What they didn't know, and probably still don't, is that I wasn't just a civil servant. They saw a guy with a modest car, a quiet job, and assumed I was living small. What they didn't know was I'd spent the last 5 years quietly climbing the ranks of the regional oversight division. Not flashy, not political, but powerful. I wasn't just in meetings I was running them. I signed off on government infrastructure contracts, tax audits, and regulatory approvals. I had discretion over what got investigated, what didn't, and which reports landed on whose desk. So when I told Raphael he should watch his back, I wasn't bluffing. He laughed at me, mocked my job, threatened my livelihood in front of a dozen people. He tried to humiliate me like it was some high school cafeteria comeback tour. So I did what I always do. I went quiet, I focused, and I started digging, not emotionally, not to get even. I wasn't fueled by rage, I was powered by principle. The difference between us was simple. He thought power came from owning buildings. I knew it came from knowing exactly where the cracks were in the foundation. Within a week, I'd opened a quiet internal inquiry into the Fitzroy Group's finances, completely by the book. Their name had come up once or twice before, but we never had reason to push further. Now we did. Unfiled permits, phantom transactions, weird offshore connections tied to subsidiary companies that didn't seem to do anything except burn through cash. By week 3, it wasn't just me watching. A federal compliance officer had been looped in. 2 departments flagged suspicious activity. A third got involved when payroll records didn't match tax statements. And me? I didn't send a single threatening message. I didn't brag, post, or gloat. I just did my job. The first domino fell when the Fitzroy Group failed a surprise audit. 3 buildings were temporarily shut down due to zoning violations. That was followed by a court order for financial disclosure. I didn't even need to light the match. I just left the trail of gasoline for someone else to notice. Word got out fast. Raphael's name was suddenly being whispered in the kind of rooms where whispers matter. Investors pulled back. Partners asked questions. Staff started quitting. And just like that, the house of cards started to wobble. The funny thing, I didn't feel good about it. There was no adrenaline rush, no slow motion victory dance in the rain, just a calm kind of finality, like flipping off a light in a room I was never planning to walk back into. Jamie called again. This time he didn't ask if I was okay. He asked if I'd done something. I didn't start it, I told him. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. A month later, I saw a post on LinkedIn that made me stop scrolling. Raphael's name. Stepping down from executive responsibilities to focus on family and personal growth. That's rich. Rumour had it that behind the scenes, he'd tried everything called in favours, tried to silence reports, even allegedly offered bribes to delay further investigations. But when the fire comes from 5 different directions, you can't stop it with a bucket. By the end of that quarter, 3 of their major properties had been seized under court orders. One of their main contracts was cancelled due to fraud. They were bleeding money, fast. And Claire? Well, she vanished faster than a free sample tray at Costco. I did run into her one more time by accident. 6 weeks after the reunion, I saw her working at a high-end boutique downtown. She pretended not to notice me, but I noticed her. Still wearing expensive lipstick, still chasing status. Only now she was stuck selling overpriced shoes to women with real power. There was no drama, no showdown. I didn't say a word, just kept walking. She wasn't worth the energy. As for Jamie, he reached out once more, said he finally understood, told me he was sorry for not stepping in that night, that he hadn't realised how much disrespect I'd swallowed before standing up. I told him it was okay, because honestly, it was. Sometimes people don't see you clearly until you walk away. I was never invited to another reunion after that. Not that I would have gone anyway. There's no point sitting at a table with people who only clap for you if they think you're losing. Raphael used to mock me for being quiet, said I was just another worker. But that's the thing about people who mistake volume for value. They never see the real ones coming until it's too late. People talk about revenge like it's loud, explosive, obvious. But the best kind? It doesn't make noise, it just works. One paper at a time, one form, one unnoticed clause in a regulation. And by the time they realize what's happening, you're already gone. By the time the Fitzroy Group officially collapsed, I was already 2 projects deep into something bigger. Infrastructure reform, regional zoning overhaul. The kind of work that no one talks about at dinner parties but quietly changes lives in the background. Meanwhile, Raphael's name disappeared from the headlines as fast as it had appeared. The scandal didn't explode. It fizzled, quiet, embarrassing, a slow bleed no one wanted to watch. His father, who I'd never met, publicly distanced himself. Said something about disciplinary restructuring and removing poor influences. Corporate speak for you're out. From what I heard, Raphael tried to sue the government for harassment. It didn't go far. Turns out, money only goes so far when people stop returning your calls. Eventually, he ended up trying to sell real estate. Mid-tier stuff. The kind of thing that doesn't get you into private lounges or mentioned in finance blogs. Last I checked, he was managing a failing restaurant out in East Langston. Yelp reviews were brutal. Claire? Word was she tried to rebound into another power relationship, but her shine had dulled. It's hard to be a status symbol when the status runs dry. She bounced around some social circles. Rumour was she even tried to get a podcast off the ground. Luxury Mindset or something like that. It tanked after 4 episodes. I didn't gloat. There was nothing to celebrate. The truth is, watching people fall apart doesn't feel like justice. It just feels like distance, a quiet separation, like a boat drifting away from shore. Jamie messaged me again a few months later. He told me people had been talking, whispers in the alumni group. Some were angry, some confused, a few quietly impressed. He asked if I wanted to clear the air. I told him no. There was nothing to explain. The truth was, I hadn't destroyed anything. They had. I just stopped helping them hide it. I guess people expect revenge to look like fire, something dramatic, explosive. But it's not always like that. Sometimes it's just clarity. Seeing people for who they really are and refusing to let them take anything more from you. Not your energy, not your peace, not your silence. One evening, I sat alone in my office long after everyone else had gone home. The windows looked out over the city Langston, lit up like a map of decisions. It wasn't a fancy view, but it was mine. I remembered that reunion, how they all laughed, how they looked at me like I was invisible, and how, for a while, I believed them. I almost forgot who I was because they were so loud about who they thought I wasn't. But silence has power too. Not everything needs to be proven. Sometimes the win is in walking out and not needing anyone to follow. People talk about karma like it's some mystical force. But karma doesn't float down from the sky. It doesn't knock on doors with a clipboard. It's boring, it's bills, it's audits, it's phone calls not returned and contracts not renewed. It's realizing too late that the people you stepped on had more weight than you thought, and it's knowing you can't undo it. Jamie sent one last message. Do you think Raphael ever understood what really happened? I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, maybe. Or maybe he's still waiting for someone else to fix it. And that was the last message I ever sent to anyone from that room. Now I live quietly. I work. I grow. I mentor people who remind me of younger versions of myself, quiet, overlooked, underappreciated. People who don't talk big but build solid. People who get things done even when no one's watching. I keep my life clean, my name quiet, and my circles small. No reunions, no drama, just peace. And every now and then when someone drops a name, Raphael, Claire, that crowd, I just smile because they live in a world that doesn't touch mine anymore. They chased flash. I built something solid. And when you do that, you don't have to prove yourself. You are the proof. Story 3. I've held this in for way too long. Maybe I'm finally ready to let it out, or maybe I'm just hoping someone out there will understand. Either way, this story has been building inside me for years. My name's Drew. I'm 27 now, but the real beginning of this story goes back to when I was just a kid around 10, maybe younger, when I first realized my place in my family. Not the oldest, not the smartest, just invisible. My younger brother Caleb is 20 now. There's a 7-year gap between us, and it's always felt more like a chasm than an age difference. From the moment he was born, it was like my parents had hit the jackpot. He was their pride and joy, the golden child. I was just there, you know? I think the moment that really solidified it for me was Christmas a few years back. Caleb tore through a mountain of gifts like a kid on TV. New gaming console, latest sneakers, designer hoodie, the whole shebang. Meanwhile, I got socks. White, basic, Walmart brand socks. I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. It's not even about the gift, really. It was the way no one even noticed me open it, like I wasn't part of the holiday at all. I faked a smile, said thanks, and watched them all fawn over Caleb like he was some kind of celebrity. That wasn't a one-time thing either. It was the pattern. Every birthday, every holiday, every conversation that somehow managed to orbit around him. My birthdays, forgotten by the time I was 11. One year, I actually threw my own party in my dorm room with a couple of classmates who barely knew me. Meanwhile, when Caleb turned 16, my parents turned the backyard into a damn carnival. Caterers, bounce house, magician, yes, an actual magician. I wasn't even invited. I found out from Instagram. When I confronted my parents, they brushed it off. You've been busy with work and school. We didn't think you'd want to come. I didn't even argue. What would be the point? By the time I was old enough to understand what was happening, it was already carved into the foundation of our family. Caleb was the favourite. And I was the what? The placeholder? The spare? The mistake? It messed with my head more than I like to admit. I worked my arse off in school. I got into college. I stayed out of trouble. I thought if I did everything right, they'd finally notice. Spoiler, they didn't. Caleb, he was charismatic, athletic, and effortless. Everyone loved him. He had this natural charm that drew people in. Me? I had to earn every bit of attention I got, and even then it felt temporary, disposable. There's this one memory that still stings. Caleb and one of his friends broke the TV while goofing around. I wasn't even home. But when my parents came back, he pointed at me and said, "Drew did it." They didn't even hesitate. Took my phone, grounded me for a month. No questions, no logic, just instant punishment. That's when I stopped trying. I started staying in my room more, crashing at friends' places, avoiding home whenever I could. It was suffocating, like living in a house where every wall whispered that I didn't belong. Even the space reflected it. Caleb had this huge room, decked out with posters, gear, new gadgets. My room was barely big enough to stretch in. It felt symbolic, you know, like they couldn't even give me space to exist. On my 18th birthday, I came downstairs hoping just maybe they'd acknowledge it. I didn't expect balloons or a cake. Just something. A card, a hug, a happy birthday. Anything. Instead, Caleb was yelling at his Xbox. My dad didn't look up from his paper. And my mum was busy making breakfast. No one said a word. I went back upstairs without eating. That was the moment I knew nothing was ever going to change. And I hated him for it. Not the we bicker like brothers kind of hate. I mean the kind that sticks in your chest and festers. The kind that keeps you up at night wondering how different your life could have been if he just didn't exist. Maybe it wasn't even his fault, especially at first. But over time, he leaned into it. He learned that if anything went wrong, I'd get blamed, that he could lie and they'd believe him. That I didn't matter. He never apologized, never acknowledged it. And worse, he acted like I didn't exist unless he needed something. My parents told me I was being dramatic whenever I tried to bring it up. You're just jealous. You need to grow up. Be nicer to your brother. Why should I? When did he ever show me the same kindness? By the time I hit my 20s, I'd had enough. I cut ties, moved out, started freelancing as a graphic designer, scraping by until I built up a real client base. I stopped calling home, stopped visiting, stopped hoping. And that's when I met Elle. God, she was different. She actually saw me, not the version of me I tried to present, not the one desperate to be accepted, just me. Elle was a digital marketer, also freelancing, and we ended up collaborating on a few projects. The rest came naturally. She made me feel seen, loved. For the first time in my life, I mattered. We moved in together after a year, combined our savings, worked side by side, late nights and early mornings, building something that was truly ours. And after months of searching, we found it a beautiful 3-story home on the edge of town. It stretched our budget more than a little, but we made it work. It was ours, a fresh start. 3 days after we moved in, I got a call from my mother. I should have let it go to voicemail. She was chipper. We're in the area. Thought we'd stop by to see the new house. Something in her voice felt off, but I said yes anyway. I was stupid, naive. Thought maybe this was a sign things were changing. An hour later, my parents showed up. Caleb was with them. So was a woman I didn't know. Turns out that was his fiancée, Lana. And she was very, very pregnant. They stepped inside like they owned the place. Lana walked through the rooms like she was already picking out furniture. My parents exchanged smug glances. And then came the real bombshell. My dad clapped his hands together like he was making a business pitch. You know, Drew, this place is really too big for just you and Elle. Wouldn't it make more sense for Caleb and Lana to move in? They're starting a family. They need the space. I froze. Wait, what? He smiled. Like he was doing me a favor. Come on, son. You've always been independent. You and Elle can find a nice condo somewhere. This house. It's perfect for Caleb's new family. And just like that, every buried wound cracked wide open. This was my house, our house. Elle and I worked for it, bled for it, scraped together every dollar. And now they were asking no, expecting me to hand it over, like I was just a placeholder again. That's where the real story begins. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at my dad, trying to process the words that had just left his mouth. Meanwhile, Elle looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing either. The silence stretched too long. Even Caleb looked slightly uncomfortable, though not enough to say anything. Lana? She was already scoping out the kitchen like she'd be meal prepping in it next week. So I asked, slow and careful, "You're serious?" My dad gave this shrug that somehow made it worse. Of course. It's not like you need all this space. You two don't have kids. He said that like it was a punchline. Elle reached for my hand under the table, like she could feel the storm brewing inside me. But I was already slipping. "No," I said. "No, this is our house. We bought this. Elle and I. No one else." My mum chimed in then, all fake sweet. "And that's wonderful, honey, but think about it. Caleb's starting a family. You have no idea what that's like yet. That line broke something in me. I looked straight at Caleb. Did you know they were going to ask this? He wouldn't look at me. Just kind of shrugged, but his smirk gave him away. He knew. You've got to be kidding me, I said, standing up. You all really came here today thinking I'd just hand over my house? Like it's a pizza coupon or something? Dad stood too. Lower your voice. No, I snapped. I'm done lowering my voice. For 20 years I let you people treat me like I was disposable, like Caleb was the sun, and the rest of us were just there to orbit him. I moved out, I built my life, and you still can't leave me alone. My dad puffed his chest like he always does when he wants to feel in control. Watch yourself, son. No, I repeated, louder this time. Get out. He stepped toward me. I stepped right back, rage pulsing through every nerve. This is my house. You don't get to walk in here and decide what I should give up for Caleb. Not anymore. Then he said it. The line that I swear I'll never forget. You owe your brother. He's building a real future. It's time you stepped aside and supported the family. And that's when I lost it. Years of being second best, of being ignored, blamed, dismissed. It all came out at once. I shoved him hard back into the hallway wall. Elle screamed. My mum gasped. Caleb stood there wide-eyed like he wasn't expecting me to finally fight back. My dad came at me. We both swung. I hit him square in the jaw. He hit me back. Lana screamed something. My mum was yelling. It was chaos. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. It felt like I was finally doing something I should have done a long time ago. It ended with police sirens. Turns out Lana had called 911. When the cops showed up, they separated us, cuffed us both, and took us to the station. I sat in that cold holding cell, and all I could think was, this is what it takes to be heard in my family? This is what it took for them to finally take me seriously. Elle bailed me out that night. Her face was pale, her eyes red, but she held me like she still saw me. Not the broken son, not the angry brother, just Drew. We thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. We were wrong. 2 weeks later, I got served. My parents had filed a lawsuit. They were trying to take the house from us, not metaphorically, legally. Claimed Caleb needed it more, said we were hoarding resources that should belong to the family. They even added in some nonsense about how they helped raise us and deserved compensation. I couldn't believe it. I knew they were messed up, but I didn't know they were delusional, so we lawyered up. I spent the next month gathering everything I could, bank statements, the mortgage deed, texts, emails, every receipt and invoice tied to the house. Elle was a rock through it all. She handled most of the logistics when I couldn't even think straight. I was angry, but more than that, I was tired. Tired of being treated like I didn't matter. In court, it was surreal. My parents came in like they were royalty. My dad wore his best suit, acting like the noble father, just doing what was right for his kids. Caleb played the victim card, said I was being selfish, that I never supported him. Lana cried for good measure, but then we presented our case. My lawyer laid it all out, crystal clear ownership of the house, financial documentation, and the emotional abuse I endured for years. We even brought in old neighbours and friends who had witnessed the favouritism and neglect. I watched my parents squirm in their seats while people testified about all the birthdays they forgot, the way they dismissed me, the lies they told. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about everything. It was justice. The judge ruled in our favour, of course. More than that, he ordered my dad to pay damages for emotional distress. 120 grand. It wasn't even about the money. It was validation. For the first time in my life, I won. After that, I cut off all contact. My parents, Caleb, Lana, I blocked them all. Changed my number. Elle and I focused on healing, rebuilding, trying to feel safe again in a house that now carried the weight of a war zone. It should have been over. But with people like them, it's never really over. After the court ruled in our favour, I thought that was it. Done. Finished. Finally free. Elle and I settled back into our home, slowly filling it with new memories instead of old wounds. We painted the walls, reorganised the office, got into the habit of waking up late on Sundays, drinking coffee on the front porch like we'd earned that peace. And maybe we had. But peace with people like my family, it doesn't last. Still, I tried to believe it could. A few months after the lawsuit, Elle and I got married. It was a small ceremony backyard. Fairy lights, just the people who mattered. No grand speeches, no drama, just love. A few close friends. Her sister. That was it. We didn't invite my parents. Or Caleb. Not after everything they'd done. I figured they'd hear about it eventually. I didn't care. But they did find out. A week after the wedding, I got this long, guilt-ridden email from my mum. Said she was heartbroken we didn't include them. Claimed they were trying to rebuild trust. That we were still family. I didn't respond. Then Caleb sent a voice message. I'll never forget how bitter he sounded. Accused me of ruining his life. Said I stole everything from him. The house, our parents' loyalty, his future. Even blamed me for Lana leaving with the baby. Yep, she left him. From what I heard, it happened not long after the court case. She moved out, took the kid, went to stay with her parents. Guess she'd finally seen the writing on the wall. I don't know the details, but knowing Caleb, he probably blamed everyone but himself. Elle and I stayed focused on our life. Work was steady. We took a little weekend trip up north to a cabin just to unplug. It was the first time in years I really felt like myself. Like I wasn't stuck in survival mode. Then one afternoon, everything snapped again. It was a regular Tuesday. Elle had gone into the city to meet a client, and I was working from home. Around 3, I took a walk around the block, needed some air. That's when I saw him, Caleb, standing across the street like he'd been waiting. Same bitter glare, same tension in his jaw. I stopped cold. What are you doing here? I asked. He didn't answer, just started walking toward me. That's when I saw it. He had something in his hand. A piece of metal, like a thick pipe or maybe a broken fence rod. Rusted. Sharp on one end. Caleb, I shouted. What the hell are you doing? But he was already running. I turned, but he was faster. First hit landed on my side, cracked a rib, maybe more. The wind shot out of my lungs. I dropped. Before I could crawl away, the second hit came my shin. The pain was white hot. I heard the bone snap. Screamed, but it came out as a choke. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. You ruined everything, he screamed, wild-eyed. It's your fault. Karen left. Dad went bankrupt. It's all because of you. I tried to roll away, but my body wasn't listening. That's when the third blow came my arm. The crunch it made didn't even feel real. And I thought, this is it. This is how I die. In the middle of the sidewalk by my own brother's hand. But then I heard shouting. Footsteps, strangers running over. One of them tackled Caleb. The rod clanged on the pavement. Someone called the cops. I don't remember much after that. Next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed. Elle was there, her eyes swollen from crying. She grabbed my hand so tight, I thought she might break it, but I needed that pressure. It told me I was still here. I had 3 broken ribs, a fractured leg, and my arm was in a cast. The doctors said if the bystanders hadn't stepped in, Caleb might have killed me. He got arrested on the spot, charged with felony assault. This time, even my parents couldn't spin it, though they tried. From my hospital bed, Elle showed me a message my mum had sent her. Caleb just lost control. He needs help, not punishment. We're all hurting. Please don't ruin his life. Elle deleted it before I could respond. She stayed by my side every day in that hospital. Handled the police reports, dealt with the lawyers, even took over my client work so we wouldn't lose momentum. She never left. I don't think I've ever loved her more than I did during those weeks. When the court date came, I had to testify. My body still healing, my mind still torn up. But I showed up. Caleb sat there like he didn't know me, didn't say a word. His lawyer tried the whole emotional distress defense, but the evidence was too strong. Eyewitnesses, security footage, hospital records. They found him guilty. 5 years, no parole for 3. My parents didn't come to support me, but they were there for him, sat behind him in court, nodding along like he was still the victim. That hurt worse than any broken bone. After the trial, I told Elle something I hadn't said out loud before. I don't have a family anymore. She squeezed my hand. You do now. And she was right. The healing hasn't been easy. I'm still in physical therapy. Still have bad days where I can't stand for long or when I wake up from nightmares. I see a therapist weekly just to unpack everything I buried for years. Some days are okay, others not so much, but I'm here, I'm alive. And I've finally stopped waiting for them to treat me like I matter, because I do, even if they never saw it. 6 months passed after Caleb was sentenced. The house felt calmer. Still, sometimes I'd hear a creak in the hallway and half expect someone to be there. Trauma doesn't care about logic. It lingers. But we tried to move forward. Elle and I talked about starting a family. We were finally in a place where peace felt possible, even if the quiet made us flinch now and then. Then, one Thursday, Elle didn't show up for lunch. It was nothing fancy, just a routine thing. I'd meet her near her office at a little cafe with outdoor seating. We'd eat, talk, laugh. It was our way of staying grounded during busy weeks. That day, I got there early, ordered her favourite sandwich. Waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I texted her. No reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. My chest got tight. Elle's the type who'll text if she's 5 minutes late. If she didn't answer, something was wrong. I tried her office. They told me she'd left at noon, right on time. I ran to my car. Started driving around the area like I'd spot her on the sidewalk. Like maybe she dropped her phone and was just out of signal. But deep down, I knew. Then my phone rang. No caller ID I picked up. And I heard her voice. My mother. Elle is with us, she said, voice calm like she was talking about the weather. We're taking her somewhere safe. Somewhere you can't hurt her anymore. My whole body locked up. What the hell are you talking about? I shouted, nearly running a red light. Where is she? Then my dad's voice came on, cold, sure of himself. You've poisoned her against us. We're giving her space, time to think. We're her family now, not you. I pulled over. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the wheel. I swear to God, I said, my voice flat and low. If you don't bring her back right now, I'm calling the cops. My father laughed. Do you think we're scared of the police? I hung up and called 911 before I could even think straight. They took it seriously, fast. Elle had already filed a statement months earlier when my family first tried to take the house, so the police didn't waste time wondering if this was real. Hours passed. I couldn't sit still. Just kept pacing the floor, phone in hand, replaying that call over and over. Every time I blinked, I pictured her tied up in a basement or trapped in some backwoods trailer. Finally, around midnight, I got the call. They found her. She'd been locked in a cheap motel room on the edge of town. My parents were keeping her there, trying to deprogram her, telling her I was a manipulator, that her love for me was fake, that she needed to come home with them. Elle? She wasn't having it. She waited for the moment they stepped out to grab food, then ran for the front lobby and begged the motel clerk to call the cops. Brave as hell. When the police arrived, she was safe. Shaken, but safe. My parents were arrested on the spot. Charges, kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, attempted coercion. They were booked and processed within hours. I didn't go to the station, didn't need to. I stayed with Elle that night, curled up in a hospital cot next to her while a nurse checked her vitals. She didn't cry. Neither did I. We were too tired, too broken. But we held each other like it was the first time, or maybe the last. Hard to tell with people like them still out there. A week later, our lawyer called. Asked if we wanted to press the charges fully or settle. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. The trial is still pending, but I don't care how it ends. I've already made peace with the truth. My parents are gone. Not dead. Not buried. Just erased. I don't need their apologies. I don't want their explanations. They crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. They touched the one thing in this world that mattered to me without asking. I used to think maybe, just maybe, they'd change. But they didn't. They didn't love me. Not really. They loved the idea of control. And when they lost it, they panicked. And in that panic, they tried to destroy me. Again and again. But this time they failed. Now, I don't look over my shoulder anymore. We installed cameras, changed all our locks, moved our financial accounts, set up emergency contacts. But more than that, we lived. Elle and I are starting over again. We're talking about moving. Maybe even leaving the state. Something quieter. Slower. A town with trees and space to breathe. Some days I still limp when I walk too far. Some days Elle wakes up shaking. But we're healing. We garden now. Small stuff. Tomatoes. Basil. She painted a sun on the backyard fence, and it catches the light just right in the morning. I sit with my coffee and watch it glow. I used to wonder if I was cursed. But maybe the curse was just staying near people who couldn't see my worth. Now, I have peace. Not because the pain is gone, but because I stopped asking for it to go away. I just let it be. Like wind through trees. Like ashes after fire. And that's enough.